Let's get started. My name is Syed Anwar. I'm a professor of marketing and international business and Henson. Welcome to our seminar. It's a wonderful day. I think we have a race today. It's a good experience. Basically, we will have a pretty nice seminar all day from 9 to 5. But we'll have 4 sessions planned, and I'll be moderating 2 sessions. But before I let you know some other details, at this time I would like to invite Dr. Killebrew. He's our Provost and Vice President Academic Affairs. He will officially welcome all of you to the session.
Thank you, Syed. Well, it's a real pleasure for me to welcome all of you to this seminar. I was looking over the agenda that Dr. Anwar set up for us. Certainly seems to me to be a very timely topic. I think it's become more and more clear to us here at the university over the last several years that the best way to accomplish good things is by developing strategic partnerships and alliances with various kinds of groups and organizations, other universities, some businesses, and so forth. Some good examples, we worked for example, for the last several years with the cattle feeds on a variety of ag initiatives that have led to a significant increase in funding for our agriculture program here. Not only just funding for the program, but increases in enrollment. Our enrollment in agriculture has about doubled in the last 5 years or so. The research capabilities and efforts of the university have increased as well. In partnership with the Plutonium Center, we've had a significant increase in our opportunities in the math and scientific initiatives. I would predict to you that in sometime in August or maybe in September, we'll be announcing a grant from the National Science Foundation for $10 million. The grant for West Texas A&M University to lead an effort to reform math and science education in rural schools in the entire state of Texas. We're real close to finishing the education. And that was one of those efforts that came about as we couldn't have done it ourselves. It had to be a partnership and alliance with other organizations, other universities, and Texas education agencies, and a lot of other people to make that happen. So, again, we really do understand and are making good benefit out of, I think, these kinds of alliances. And I thought you for being here today to participate in this kind of exchange and discussion. It turns out to be a lucky campus.
Okay, our first session will be basically on theory and current and changing trends of sciences. Now, some of you, I think, if you want to move this way, there are 6 seats available here. If you have a problem, our deans have a good conversation here. There are 3 seats available. If some of you would like to come here, it will be okay. Dr. Kotabe is our second speaker of this session. And Dr. Kotabe is the world authority on international marketing. He originally is from Japan, in the suburbs of Japan. He came yesterday. We took him to Amarillo, Canyon. He thought that it was not a big canyon, but he was amazed. And we had a great time. So I'm glad that he's here, and I think we will have a fun day. And Dr. Kotabe will be talking about what are the issues we need to do when you do an alliance, capacity with Asian and Japanese countries. Now, the format for this seminar is we will make sure that we also cover non-profit organizations, because we do have 4 to 5 participants of non-profit organizations. And alliances are not only for business entities. In these days, alliances are also made for everybody. So at this time, I will give about 30 minutes, and after that, I will hand over to Dr. Kotabe, and he will talk about some of his strategies and theories. Now, I am about to mention one thing. Dr. Kotabe is also the author of this textbook. I would say it is the best textbook in international marketing these days. I'm using it. There are many people using it in this country. As we know that there are 600 used in this country, and it's being used worldwide. We will give this book to you today in information, and we will have a drawing of other items and including this book and courses. And you will also be provided the certificate, and I think it does have it carries which you can use it in your job. Okay, alliances. This kind of little bit away, I want to make sure that every information we have here is also on your handbook. So if you have a problem seeing this, I think you can look at your handbook. Alliances, joint venture. What exactly we are talking about? Basically, in layman's terms, when two or more organizations, profit or non-profit, get together and combine their resources just to see some common objectives, what we call is strategic alliance. Now, the word strategy is used because it's the long term, and the companies will not merge, the companies will not share any activities, but basically putting up your resources in terms of technology, in terms of money, in terms of intellectual capital, in terms of your knowledge workers, in terms of distribution, marketing, sales. You can use somebody's office in other countries. You can use somebody's resources in other countries or there. And especially the non-profit organizations, when 6-7 companies or organizations get together. And basic idea is, in order to compete, of course you have to be aggressive. But how about if you can't compete? Then the formula is, why don't you join your competitors? So that's why we have relationship is reciprocal and it has to be horizontal. The third thing is, most of the partners, they will retain their identity. You don't lose your identity. And then the third concept, fourth concept, of course, is the marriage of convenience. And marriage of convenience based on virtual cooperation. So you can have any type of alliance, vertically, horizontally, most of the time horizontally. And marriage of convenience, when two people think that they need to get married for some reason, temporarily, that's why we use this book. Okay, what kind of the key issues, as I said before, if you can't compete your competitor, you better join them. If you can't compete your competitor in some market, what's the formula? You go to their offices, you make a meeting, and you say, why don't we just collaborate? So, some of the examples we have here, and I have told this chart from Dr. Kotabe's book, and this is, it came from the book, and you will see it's not available in your handbook because I will include it. You will see that there are so many companies. IBM has an alliance with Motorola, Apple, Syed, HP, Hewlett Packard has an alliance with Henson, Masaaki, all these companies. Sun has an alliance with ICL, Fujitsu, IBM, all these companies. So basic idea behind alliances is sometimes it's a network of all the companies coming together for the sake of some common objective. What types and forms of alliances we are talking about? As I said, it can be a strategic alliance, it can be a joint venture. Now, joint venture, there is some equity involved. Two companies will get together and they make a new entity. And that entity must have some equity and it can have its own name. And this is where we call it a joint venture. It can be a technology transfer if you provide some technology to somebody. If you have research and development partnerships or consortium formation. Now, consortium can be a mixture of 20, 30, 20 companies. Europeans are very good in that, in terms of consortium. There are many European companies, they have consortium like 20, 20 companies getting together. But the thing is, the development cost in these days is going so high. You cannot afford to go alone and develop a product. Just give you one example. In these days, a jumbo jet, what you fly from LA to Tokyo, it takes about 13 hours, non-stop, without any refueling. Now, if you look at the development cost for that plane, that was developed in 1968. At that time, it was about $2 billion or $1 billion. The same plane will cost you about $8 to $10 billion. And there is no guarantee that it's going to be successful. So what do? You can't afford to go alone, so you have to get together. So this is where research and technology. You can be across distribution that you are creating marketing. You can be across licensing, cross manufacturing, marketing, suppliers. Now suppliers alliances are extremely beneficial, and most of you are dealing with suppliers alliances. You have 10, 15 alliances. 10, 15 companies, suppliers becoming part of your organization. And in these days, suppliers will also sit in your company. And suppliers will also be part of the product development process. There was a time when manufacturers and suppliers, they had a love-hate relationship. In these days, a supplier is part of your company. So this is where it's a very interesting concept. And Mr. Michael Law, he's going to deliver this talk at 10:30, and he's going to talk about some of the issues that we are facing in supply, because he has dealt with our issues. Then we have linkages of non-profit organizations. Now, this is kind of a new concept. In the last 10 years, you will be amazed at how many non-profit organizations like Red Cross, United States, Salvation Army, of course, Henson, all these foundations. And there are so many in this country. They are all seeking alliances in terms of raising money, in terms of managing their resources, and in terms of future survival. And this is a pretty big issue. Joint bidding consortia, counter trade agreement, we can have an alliance where you give me your product, I will send that my product. That's what we need. Pilot agreement, licensing, strong contracts, minority investment. And the last part is, if they all like each other, then they will merge together. And this is where a couple of months ago, you must have read in the newspaper that Chrysler Corporation is going to merge with Daimler. And Daimler is one of the best companies in the world from Germany, and they make Mercedes. So basically, Chrysler has a very good market share in the minivan industry, about 40%. But Mercedes, they do not have any market share in this country in that segment. So why don't I use your resources? So by doing that, Mercedes-Benz will have quick access to all the Chrysler dealers. And then Chrysler is always perceived to be number 3. They are making one of the best cars, but you still consider Chrysler, they will pay because they still haven't reached that status. So Chrysler will have immediate access to the luxury segment. And Chrysler at least has one of the best design departments in the world. Can they design cars? So this is where the ultimate stage is, let's merge together and maybe improve. Now this merger, if the marriage doesn't come out to be good, they can also separate. Because when you combine German with American companies, sometimes the corporate culture is clash. The way German system is, this is not the way we work. And most of you know that in Germany, banks will also have a pretty good share in your company. In this country, we don't do that. It's kind of easy. So this is kind of very interesting concept. Dr. Kotabe will talk about direction system in Japan, where companies also become part of the loan. A big bank can also give the loan, and they will have a share informal relationship. Okay, what are the causes and driving forces? It can be a resource driven, it can be a technology driven, it can be a customer driven, It can be a knowledge and intellectual capital driven. Now, this is a new concept. In these days, there is a real shortage of knowledge workers. And if you are in a high-tech company, especially false companies from corporate systems, some of the companies, including this and Silicon Valley, they literally are importing people from Taiwan, India, Pakistan, Turkey, and what are we talking about? Intellectual capital. Now, a couple of months ago, Fortune magazine ran a story. Bill Gates, a famous man, $51 billion rich in this world, very land. His company is only $12 billion, but his market value is $201 billion, the second highest market value in the world. The highest one is either Coke or GE. So basically, intellectual capital, you are using somebody's brain, and Microsoft doesn't have capital. They don't have any manufacturing. What they do is, they hire these people, put them in cubicles, and these people live on Pizza Hut and Snicker bars. They don't come out of the room, and after 2-3 months, they will come up with the software, and that's the comparative edge of Microsoft. So that's kind of an alliance which is extremely important. Then we have a risk-driven, finance-driven, company-driven suppliers. You can make acquisitions. What are the potential benefits we have discussed before? You learn your partner's skills, economies of scale, faster learning, scale technology, access to new markets, speed of innovation, ability to deal with changing markets, risk, reward, and again, you can use somebody's intellectual background. Now, as I said before, so far we have been discussing all the good things. Not everything is right. Now, historically, and I'm also, I think use some of the data, there are a lot of empirical studies now by academics and by practitioners. Usually supplying that about 55% of the alliances fail. Now the question is, why are we doing this? If it fails, then the reason is because still it's a good option. Why not? And of course, the divorce rate in this country, especially in California, is about 55 to 60%. So it doesn't mean people don't get married. We still have to collaborate and we still have to work out. Now, what are the problems of autonomy? Other problems? Corporate culture. If you combine Microsoft and IBM, I don't think they will really fit well. Microsoft people come in their teams and teachers. IBM, you go to your office, you'll be 5 minutes, 24 hours. So basically, the corporate culture, thinking, the way you live, organization style, doesn't fit well, and it happens. Hewlett Packard just canceled this alliance with one of the companies. Korean companies, they had a problem dealing with American companies. So these are some of the issues. How to get along? Willingness to learn and cooperate, sharing power, building trust. There is a lot of studies that are coming out on two topics. One is called commitment, another one is called trust. If you can handle these two issues, you can have an alliance which can go for 100 years. But people do not trust each other. This is a human being, human tendency. It's like a marriage, husband and wife. Most of the time when the things break down, it's because of partners who don't trust each other. And when it comes to trust, things break down. So the same is happening. Transfer of technology, somebody with superior technology, reconciling differences, and of course, poor judgment. You did not calculate your risk, you thought it would be great. After a few months, you found out that this alignment was not for you. So these are some of the issues. As I said before, what's the magic formula? Build trust, seek collective action, share resources. Of course, you have to have a long-term commitment. Never ever deal with an alliance with your partner if you are not sure about your long-term plan. Share power and control, deal with conflict, seek coordination to design our organizational structure. Now, a couple of examples I'm going to mention. When you are managing a $50 billion company or $100 billion company, that's a country itself. If you look at some of the countries in the world, the GNP of some of the countries in the world is about 30 billion, 40 billion, 60 billion. And then you are managing a company which is $100 billion. Some of the companies, their headquarters never grow. They are open 24 hours. So ego, power, you know, you have so many resources on your disposal. So this is where you merge with a living company and you treat them not like a good guy. So this is where the whole impact. You know, in order to get a radio station, you have to have the same wavelength. When people have same wavelength, we communicate. When you don't have a same wavelength, then you are not understanding each other. So this is one of the major issues. And then design organizational structure and control. I'll give you one example here. Most of you know Apple computers. Apple computers used to be a price maybe about 15 years ago. It used to be a $12 billion, now they are down to $9 million. They lost market share, they did not do things which they were supposed to do. They made a lot of mistakes. And what happened in Apple, because they did not want to share their technology with anybody. And they thought they will go alone and it will be great. Well, everybody came into the market and the rest is on. So Apple is left behind. Their alliances were not effective like IBM, River Packard, Motorola, Texas Instruments, all these. So basically, if you look at one guy, Steve Jobs, he wanted to be in charge and he's back again. So big problem in terms of organizational structure. The way you are organized. There's a concept we have to say is called modular corporation or vertical corporation, where corporation is kind of a plan linked to suppliers. So this is where you make it more real and beneficial. What are the issues you need to investigate before you start your alliance? Make sure that your alliance is measurable. Can you quantify? Make sure that you understand your alliance in terms of long-term and short-term objectives and your company goals. Make sure your alliance is controllable. Many times you start an alliance, after a few months you found out that you cannot control your partner because they are cheating, they are going underground, dealing with your competitors, selling all the equipment, all the technology. So this is where the whole issue is. Is your alliance diagnosable? Is your alliance replicable? Can you replicate it within your company? Because some companies can transfer the same message to their other subsidiaries. Is your alliance valuable, trainable, predictable, sustainable? And most of the time, you have to calculate all these things before you get into an alliance. Basic checklist in your alliance. Make sure that you calculate your long-term gains. Alliances are never done for 6 months or a couple of years. Sometimes you do that, but mostly it is long-term strategy. You have to know your objectives. Can you create any value of your alliance? Profile of your partners. Sometimes partners will be extremely good. When you develop an alliance, everything changes. Their faces will change. Their behavior will change. They are no longer the same people. So this is where you have to have a very good investigation. Capability of your alliances, bargaining power, collaboration mode, issues of tacit knowledge. Now, this is kind of a very tricky area. Tacit knowledge is not that what I can do with my hand. Tacit knowledge is here. Tacit knowledge is if today Bill Gates leaves Microsoft, I will only use their stock will collapse for some time. So what are we talking about is the tacit knowledge which you cannot deliver naturally, but it happens automatically. So in an alliance, that's one of the most important. Issues of compatibility, commitment, identify your costs, issues of autonomy, risk and opportunity, and can you transform your alliance, and also, and I will let eating management to there, we will discuss all the issues. The last part has to deal with all the issues. How about transformation and how about termination of your alliance? And then in your handbook, I have different kinds of alliances mentioned here. These are very self-explanatory. Motivation for alliances, there are many things which we have already covered. And then I also have in your handbook issues. I did a study long time ago, 1990, and I also made a presentation over here. And we compared small businesses versus big corporations. And this comparison will help you understand where small businesses will go and are very good at making alliances, and big companies will have different kinds of alliances and different problems. And then there are two things. What do you do in the pre-negotiation stage? In the pre-negotiation stage, make sure you expected your benefits, investigate your partner's ability, check your priorities, investigate performance standards, overall value added, and development of your new product. When you negotiate your alliance, and again, this is where you have to understand some legal issues. I'm going to discuss only some of the organizational issues. You negotiate your boundaries, which boundaries you can go to. If you go beyond your boundaries, you cannot be successful. Discuss your short-term transfer benefits, discuss possible spin-offs. It's very amazing and very interesting that sometimes you make an alliance and you'll be amazed that after some time you may have another spin-off coming out in the form of products, in the form of companies. So both partners will say, why don't we do this? And you go to another product and another country or another segment. So these are called spin-offs. Discuss all the specialization, plan ahead, when, how, where, discuss performance standards, and look at all the resources, infrastructure, technology, how do we check your tax, financial, and legal issues. In this country, in this state, most of you are familiar with some of the issues. But when you go beyond your national borders, that needs to change, and I will let Dr. Kotabe deal with that issue. And finally, when you manage your alliance, or when you maintain your alliance, make sure that you develop inter-firm teams. Any alliance you make, you have to have some committee or team taking care of that alliance, otherwise it will not work. Always develop your contingency plan standby. Always encourage a person. Have a periodic meeting to monitor the changes in market. Develop new partnerships for one of the most important things that will any alliances will break down. That the partners don't have some sort of equality. If one company is big, one company is small, you don't treat this company in a very nice way, the resentment will come in, some problems of not good feeling, and they break down. You have to treat your partner with respect, regardless of their stage, market share, and this is where both people have to be equal. With market share, market follower strategy, many companies are market followers, and they still are unstable competitors. Avoid companies that are not major dependent. Another problem happens in an alliance when one partner is starting to depend too much on the other partner, so what we do to also use your competitiveness. So make sure that you will continue whatever activities you can do. Create some sort of entrepreneurial environment. Now, it has been studied, it has been empirically established in the media and in our journals that any alliance you look at, you have to have some entrepreneurial activity. You have to give somebody, the chance that they grow and they do it, because entrepreneurial activity is important. Alliances will not work. Anytime you have too much bureaucratic establishment, alliances will fail. And take commitment on the part of your members and again provide some performance standards. Now, some of these things are kind of competent, very simple. And when you convert these into your calculation, what we recommend is then you have to quantify and elaborate and reduce all the things which are set by the act. And this can be done in your management department. You have to establish and develop some form which should be calculated. Basically what we do is we create SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this is where you get the work. Because it's very difficult to make a standardized approach for everybody in every company. But these are some of the basic issues. As I said before, alliances, joint ventures, consortia, collaboration, inter-organizational collaboration, these are the name of the game. We can't convey to a comparison, video comparison. We join them, we cooperate, but again, many issues are involved, and when you go beyond your national borders, then the whole ball game. And at this time, I will stop, and I will ask Dr. Kotabe to contribute, and he will bring some international flavor to this topic. If we have any questions, we will entertain questions at 10 after 9, 10 after 10, and then we will have about 15 to 20 minutes for your questions and answers.
What I would like to talk about, first of all, is a little bit confusion. I'm currently at the University of Pickens, but also for 4 days I'm moving to Centennial University in Philadelphia. And as a Longhorn, I had a joke with my Temple folks. Temple mascot is an owl, a bird. And I said Longhorn was small, and they said they shot back. They said owl was smart. Anyway, so I'll be at Centennial University for 4 days. Well, what I would like to talk about is something more specific, dealing with, I should say Japanese, but Japanese type corporation. And particularly my focus will be on the issue of learning. Since you have a partner, you can learn from them as well, and they will learn from you. And in the process, which party is likely to learn more from the other? And then the chances that they will part. And after they have parted, what's left over? Which is more likely to do it and so forth. So that's the topic. And when I say joint ventures, it's a casual expression. It can be anything. It can be a legal entity called a joint venture. It can be a strategic alliance in broad sense. Anyway, so that's the topic. Now, it's a cliche to talk about all these costs and benefits. So it's a cliche, but I will emphasize no matter which speak on this, we will always talk about benefits and costs. Particularly dealing with Japanese, I suppose. The benefits that you see immediately are obviously they're good at making, they're good at delivering and leading. So it amounts to a faster production, which is good. Reliable product quality, it has going to the manufacturing. Dr. Anwar talked about the Apple Notebook, or Apple company. Apple Notebook computer was made by Sony. And then I was consulted by Apple Computer to see if it would make strategic sense for Apple Computer. And I said, no, we will use out everything. So, becoming concerned, Apple decided to set up a relationship with Sony. So they started making their own notebook computers in-house, only to realize they couldn't make it as reliably as Sony was done. So they came back to me and asked me, which company should we have another partner? And naturally they were trying to go back to Sony. So they were fishing around, and I didn't say anything. They found Toshiba as the second manufacturer of notebook, Apple notebook computer. So that's the type of thing. Anyway, the reliable product comes out of Japanese, so why don't we rely on it? And of course, given the Japanese distribution network around the world, definitely we have broader distribution coverage among those we have. The cost side is one, Robert Reich, ex-Labor secretary under Clinton first time, he wrote an interesting article in 1980 about the Institute, and his title was something like "Joint Venturing with the Japanese is a sure way to do everything." And of course, there was no theory about it, but what he tried to say was exactly what I was talking about. And I developed my own theory, and I'll show you something very fundamental. Something very fundamental. So you are bound to do something faster than meeting. And two, eventually in the process you become dependent. You think about the Hewlett Packard success in laser gate. Who's making the most money out of it? HP owns the market. If you think about laser gate, think of HP. That's what we think. But who really makes a lot of money? More than 90%. So the most important part in that printer is the printer, which is called printer. And that is made by Canon. Canon supplies more than 90% literally produces more than 90% of worldwide supply of printer. So who's making this money without advertising? All I have to do is take let Hewlett Packard package is important. So it is easy that Hewlett Packard looks nice on paper. And eventually, look at it this way: Canon controls the most important ingredient of software. And HP has a brand recognition, and HP is fully aware they depend on 90% on Canon. And Canon has a great brand, mostly for Canon, but they have enough to go into the printer to create their own brand. And it's just a matter of time. Well, luckily Japan is in recession, so they may not be willing to go out with some of the money invested. But once the economy turns around, it will eventually dominate the So there is a risk of creating major. So let's look at some of the fundamentals. So something I would like you to think about. There are basically two ways to handle this issue. American business education is based upon what I call efficiency philosophy. Even the answer, how could I minimize the cost? And if you read any textbook, or if you go to any lecture, the fundamental assumption is, how could I minimize the cost in the job? It's a philosophical thing. And go to Germany or Japan. They have a fundamentally different mindset. Now, good or bad, different mindset. They say, if the objective is set, how should I meet this objective with a benign flow? Benign ignoring or neglecting the cost side of the equation. So out of that came the famous zero defect group. If you're an engineer, you know, 12 hours is professionalism. That means you are incremental improvement and conquer adding one additional percentage improvement goes higher and higher in astronomical dimension. So sometimes having a perfect product, having a perfect delivery in a retail sense, no stop happens. The company goes to the store and finds everything that you want to buy. And that's no stop happens. And that's it. But in general, some folks, particularly Japanese and Germans, tend to focus more on get the job done, which I call effective. And then I will talk about how they relate to alliances. I'm just giving you foundation. And looking at good thing about the Japanese and Germans is they never have business education. They all know business school. Now today, at least oldest one in Germany where I taught is called WTAMU or Southern School of Corporate Management in Poland. It's about 15 years old. Not that 15 or 1998, so you know, 1983. Likewise, go to Japan, the oldest one, the Keio Business School. And how many students are there? Go to Poland. They have about 100 students over 2 years. students in Amarillo. And both of them, they all have 85 students over the year. And the speaking of MBA is they do well. So after self-contributing to others, in Japan, I believe there are 3 or 4. In Germany, maybe literally, times 100 students per school. We're not talking about really education, and we talk about education. Come to the ocean, we have 1,000 students. The problem is the ocean alone holds more MBA students than all Japanese students and German students. So they really don't emphasize cost efficiency. They never lunch. They never talk about cost of capital. Discount capital. They might have heard of it. Well, I'm sure they know the mechanics of it. The principle is important. So they ignore the concept. Now, which should be contributing to particularly Japanese? I'm not saying which school of thought is genuine better. So under certain circumstances, well, I can tell you, if you're an investor, go for American company. If your customer buys that, this cost is low. I mean, the Japanese corporations, they have high cost structure. Don't ever believe the Japanese are low cost, whatever. Low cost producer, but high cost market. If you look at the market cost, it's amazing. They outspend them by at least 3 to 1. Customer satisfaction. Really happy. Buy Japanese, German products, but if you won't invest your money, go from there. So again, depending on how you will see it. Now let's turn our attention to more of the Japanese issue. I'm not going to talk about the details on this. Basically, what's good about Japanese and to some extent German way of doing business, they are good at managing big issues. American companies are generally good at managing each individual company independently, but collectively, not quite. And the reverse is, the Japanese and Germans may not be good at managing R&D, manufacturing, or marketing individually, but collectively, they get job done. So anyway, let me do that. So let me ask. Well, I started asking very, very fundamental questions. Living in Austin, naturally I've been faced dealing with those high-tech companies, also dealing with all these companies. And I used to work for NEC, Japanese computer maker. So also I dealt with those Japanese companies. There are 2 ways to ask about this corporate competitiveness. One is the first one that I don't have to explain it. Where can you add value? What's the focus competitive focus for your company? Let's focus strictly on delivery manufacturing companies, and there are only things A companies will do. So let's focus strictly on R&D manufacturing marketing, which is kind of I'm not saying the areas that I provided are not important, but there are human resources important, finance is important. But let's not look at those. Let's look at just 2 countries. And then the broad executives that classrooms very likely and ask them, if you're 3M, where do you think, well, look at your company, as opposed to look at 3 aspects of what company does. Where do you think this value, totally competitive value? And that's how one can ask the question. And regardless, where can we reduce cost? Reduce cost to teach here academic jargon, team immutability. How can you make your business very difficult to competitors? And team immutability is crucial. So where can the firm reduce cost? Make that particular aspect of the business very difficult to competitors. So you can look at the same issue from benefit side, or value side, or cost side. Then before I show you my conclusion, I would like you to see some examples. Nothing to do with strategic alignment. Diagonal ones this way, they are successful. And this diagonal shows not successful. Now, simply imagine, well, again, simple world. There are innovators and leaders. And there are market successes and market failures. Just like this. And if you start finding examples and place those examples and for flaws, and lo and behold, you will come across more examples along this path. In other words, imitators are more likely to succeed on the market, and innovators are more likely to fail on the market. Now, I'll give you one good example. RC Cola, Royal Crown Cola. Do we have the Royal Crown? Cola was not invented by Royal Crown Cola, it was by Coca-Cola. But nonetheless, after that, which company has been historically the most innovative into this product? Diet Cola was invented by RC Cola. Now, don't say Diet to make Diet take sugar out and put aspartame in. It doesn't work. It doesn't need a different cola. There's obviously different procedure. It was RC Cola. What about caffeine free? Don't ever say again, take out caffeine and you have caffeine. It doesn't taste like caffeine cola. It tastes like sugar. Obviously, two different things. It was invented or innovated by RC Cola. What about colored cola? It's a bomber, but nonetheless, it was originally invented by RC Cola. Amazingly, we don't know it. We tend to associate all of these new products with Coca-Cola. But if you look at the theology, most RC Cola has been the most innovative. EMI, CT scan, PET scan, was invented by a couple of scientists working for EMI Britain. They got Nobel Prize. It's not just simple innovation. And this company, this division of the company, went bust. It was 6 months. Only to be taken over by GE, Hitachi, and Siemens. And ask yourself, why those innovative products fail? And whereas imitators, IBM never had a PC themselves. Before IBM, there were PCs around, and IBM decided to bring in what is known as Microsoft and Intel, small entrepreneurial companies, to catch up for those PCs. IBM compatible PCs. Then IBM took off with it. And luckily, most of Microsoft and Intel, they basically piggybacked on IBM because we never innovated. IBM has never been innovative. It's a massive package and massive massive product called well, anyway, so again, it's amazing. Once you start feeling like that, imitators are more likely to succeed. Innovators are more likely to fail. And why is that? So let's gradually move to fundamental understanding. Once you have those high-tech candidates selected, where the sources of your competitive advantage? And I asked them to allocate 100 points. I did it many times, and then the findings are consistent. People say general. Again, I have to remind you, this is a bunch of people from high-tech. They say about 25, 28% coming from restructuring. And about 30% from truly making marketing. And about half of this marketing, branding, trying to satisfy customers and all that. So that's how they see what their companies are doing in terms of creating value for competitive advantage. And then I even have the same batch, similar batch of people from similar companies. It's a very spiritual mindset. just think about where do you think we should cut costs to make that part of the business feasible, then collective understanding that I observed from the same executive is R&D is about manufacturing to 55%. But it means is if you are to reduce costs to gain competitive advantage, that has to be manufacturing. R&D is to be with a threshold level. If you don't invest, you will lose out. So there is a competitive strategy, marketing. So looking at the same company, the same set of people are seeing the same thing in two different ways. Now, if you look at this way, I call it American, typical American way, then let's say this is a global international firm, and resources are limited, internal resources are limited, so you have to cut corners. In other words, you need partners. If you can't do things right, cut somebody that will afford it. That is right. Which one of the three activities would you like to offshore? And many of them said, from the cost side of manufacturing is possible, they do. But the value side is limited. It's costly, it's not adding value to your competitiveness. It's the right option for offshore. So that is what align with partners who can do a good job. Then if you look at it this way, and then asking the same executive the same question, they say, no, we have to invest more in manufacturing and how it is possible. So the same set of the executives, well, the point being, the same set of the executives, American executives, can come up with two different strategies and issues. Depending upon just after all, strategy must be a matter of discussion. I went to Japan, it's the same thing. The law because Japanese people keep it this way. How could I reduce cost in how could I add value? These are the values we tend to look at cost. And then they say they have to invest more in So, and then I asked those Japanese workers, mostly Japanese, by the way, I think in Japan there's some people in Japanese companies about 80, they even call it yen-based companies. They have no responsibility for and I asked them to look at it American, and I developed a question I said to look at the advantage of value side, and they produce the same interesting. But if we let those Japanese think about the strategy speaking, we look at it American strategy, and then based upon those two perceptions, perceptions drive the decision. So Americans say, get rid of manufacturing, we don't need it. We have to invest in brand equity, like invest in corporate and product, and of course we should invest in R&D. The Japanese would automatically say, brand equity for that So that's the perception. So there's also the strategic alliance. To me, the strategic alliance or joint venture, whatever you call this area convenience or inconvenience, is what is really the boundary of your company? What should you do in-house? What should we let out certain things? So that's how I want to see it. It's not simply two institutions or two companies or two organizations meeting halfway. Looking at the same issue from within the company. This is my company, this is what I do, and this is what I stand for. But what part of me should be found out? What part of me should be kept in? And that relates to the issue of organizational environment. What should we keep to keep running, and what should you let go? And basically, one issue is ability to retain. Can we, well, this is something we should keep to ourselves. And then I developed a battery of questions. So, I asked them ability to retain, in other words, if any activity, you think was and if you can manualize it, if you can spell out everything in manual, you don't need a background. That's so easy. You don't need to. And if it's teachable, sometimes it's very difficult to state everything in manual. But if you have 2, 3 people who want to do a partner, then you explain the teaching well enough so that your partner can use it. Then if it's teachable, that's all. And if it's complex, the same way. If it's not so complex, it's well. And this is not talk about variability. And we have to retain those. And this is where I think Professor Anwar talked briefly about the notion of cheating. People tend to act in God. Sometimes we can trust other people. So if your partner is likely to cheat on you, and then there are actually the question of whether to ask many questions. And then the last question to ask yourself is, assuming the company is a growing contract, the German considered living needs organism, then do we need this activity for long-term survival? And I think one of the examples has nothing to do with Japanese. Poles or bodies that make people. They do 2 things. One is to make the cone, the inner, what's called the cone, inside what's inside of the box. And then this company makes box. So basically it has 2 divisions, box making division and speaker making division, cone making division. And they came to me and asked me a simple question, actually I asked them a question. I asked them to fill out the question in solution. And interestingly, this is what happened. The cash flow is limited, so if at all possible, their argument is they would like to reduce the peak cost. In other words, they would like to get rid of one of the divisions. Each of the 2 should I and then funnel out the one that they don't need to the person. And so once we went through this, we came to the conclusion, particularly from this angle, they were actually thinking about dumping pizza box division, because the box is either used for plywood and plastic. They just didn't realize it before. Anyone can do box. That's what they are. And lo and behold, as it turned out, they just like the opposite. Obviously, depending upon how you cut the interior side of the box, they make many views and many angles. And it's manually done. Partially master view, and then the rest is manually transferred. And that part is extremely crucial to create and sort of count the whole system. So as a result, there is a genuine long term. Something you just cannot count. It's not something you can solve. And two, the fundamental question, the financial question, can this division operate through the industry? If you lost the speaker-making business, can this division remain an independent company? Can this box to the other competitors or anyone who wants to do class box? And if the answer is yes, so from that angle, I asked them self-sustainable business strategy. And in all the criteria that I laid out, I suggested in the end that we would take it. I'll get back to the Japanese example later on. Now let's bring it down to everyday time. Americans tend to, the notion of innovation I think Americans in general talk about product innovation, and they never talk about the making type of innovation, delivery type of innovation, in general called process innovation. Even the term itself didn't exist until 1978, when one professor at Harvard came up with product and process innovation. It's fairly new. It's newsworthy. Look at Wall Street Journal. They always talk about product innovation. They rarely talk about great delivery. 7-Eleven. Nobody wants to work for 7-Eleven. But in Japan, go to 7-Eleven. That's one of the most successful companies ever in history in terms of PE ratio. Even if you look at ROE, return on equity, or PE ratio, that's probably one of the most successful companies in history anywhere around the world. And we don't think about 7-Eleven stores. 7-Eleven Japan, people started writing about 7-Eleven. I wrote an article on 7-Eleven, and I sent some of my MBA students to 7-Eleven Japan, and they are into awe of what they're doing. And because of the success, it was a licensee of Custom Corporation. And then 7-Eleven Japan took over against Custom, and now they started adding the Japanese 7-Eleven operation. So from newsworthiness, process part doesn't stand out. So we stay away. We want something flashy. I said flat in the sense that it gives you immediate type of time. Immutability I talked about. Product innovation, unfortunately, is always infinite. Once you show the product, you can give out things patent, get it. There's commercial resistance. So you can always reinvent the same thing. So in that sense, if your product innovative, you can get it out rather quickly. Passiveness, Dr. Anwar talked about the importance of passive technology. It is something in the company that no one knows outside. Not passive, it's something that you product technology, if you have a product, whether it's a service, it's a physical product, once you see it, you can always present around it. There's not much passive about it. The fourth one, not to be with, on the development time. Product development, new product development time can be very short. Whereas product delivery time, it takes long, so much passive knowledge that you just can't explain. You do it yourself. You don't have manual. This is what you do. You have so much passive knowledge in talking. Fixed investment, this is like American law. Product innovation, R&D investment, that's massive. But nonetheless, you don't invest in manufacturing, distribution channel. It's teaching. Whereas, if you are manufacturing, delivery, stay away. Finally, adaptability to market shift. If you're making, tinkering with new products, if market shift really won't come to us, it's not a reason. Whereas if you have invested so much money in distribution, moving things around, that was negative. And look at it from the American point of view, look at pluses and minuses. Americans prefer to keep investing in product type of business. And couldn't even like the business. Anyway, so the last 2 minutes, I'll give you two confidential, really transparency that should be sure. But actually, there is no board company on my there. I've been funded by airports, U.S. airports, to do supply chain. What's going on with the supply chain management? I wanted to look at automobiles, but they are way ahead in terms of Japanizing, justifying delivery system, and Ford is way ahead of it. So why don't we look at the big companies? Ford. We went to Ford, and Ford would like to talk about this. We have to get around it, and that's why the research is possible. If you give me the answer, I don't have to go around anyway, for a car maker to remain a car maker, they have to build transmission a really crucial ingredient for coming in the country. We know that, everybody knows it, like I said. What's the third most important ingredient for coming to the country? And this really make a long story short. It's the dye. Dye is the stuff that makes various chemicals. So dye is the third most important value-adding activity for farming. So let's look at the dye. Does Ford good income, or do they have a partner? What do you think? They're practicing Toyota style just in time better than Toyota. It's really Japanese by any means. They have admitted, but it's really Japanese. They learned it really well. They do it very well. What do you think they do? The supply chain. The Ford is an assembler, and Ford gets supply from all these partners, alliance partners. Engine comes from, transmission comes from, etc. And I don't know. Where does the dye come from? And it is pretty much simple. For economy models, mass production models like Ford, Taurus, and Mustang, the dyes are all made not high-tech, mass production dyes. Let's look at high-end. To me, coming from going concern point of view, the company is here to stay for a long haul. And if so, state-of-the-art technology that they have today will become everyday technology 5 years, 10 years from now. So if you don't have it, you're gonna have it. If you have it, you have it. So from that angle, I had an assumption. They would like to use state-of-the-art stuff at the high end, even though they didn't have to make too much money. And lo and behold, that is it. So I wanted to ask Ford, who is making dyes for Lincoln models and Jaguar? And then, also we went around and found out the company called the Ogihara is making dyes for Lincoln models and Jaguar models. And what kept this company called Ogihara bought Jaguar plant in Britain. So Jaguar facility in Britain, which belongs to the corporate name belongs to Ford, but it's owned and run by Ogihara. And still Japanese, Ogihara sounded like a Japanese company. And of course, I went to Ford and asked, is really Ogihara making the dyes for American? And of course, there's no comment. So we went around again. Lo and behold, we traveled back to Saitama Prefecture north of Tokyo, only to find out Ogihara is a Japanese company. The Japanese company behind the scenes is making dyes for Jaguar and Lincoln models. So this is confidential in the sense that this is actually the chart that they were using. Basically, before that, it took about 48 months for Ford to develop, remodel the whole lineup. And when I said several years ago, they shrunk the development cycle to 36 months, thanks to Ogihara. And today, 32 months will be shorter. So go to Japan, it's 28 months, it will be shorter. Time to market is crucial. And well, not only that, but in any case, it is kind of alternate part. What happened was, we went to Ford. Ford finally admitted that they are relying on, they are working with Ogihara. And said, Ogihara is great here, they do a great job, we don't have to invest in physical products. We don't have to make them, they do it work. And they even do their plants in Howell, Michigan, which is 30 miles out of Michigan. So they have the facility, Ford didn't have to invest in anything, they didn't have to apply the great job. So from the Ford point of view, they reduced its cost very much. If you have reduced its cost, the break even comes to 40. country basis. You don't have to have massive sales. So Ford is 100% control. They went to Obihara, and Obihara behind the scenes was laughing at the whole issue. According to Obihara, Ford has no ability to design the next generation Jaguar. And indeed, I went before, Obihara people working their way up into the design. But that's the well, basically, the Ford became dependent on Obihara. And Obihara, one of the Obihara customers is Ford, and 10 years ago it was Tariq, Swedish company. And Tariq is a small company. Obihara said they want to go after a bigger customer, so they let go of the Tariq relationship. And without the Tariq, as you know, couldn't be done. They are selling 15-year-old models year after year. And Ford is a big customer, so far Obihara is quite happy. And I tell you, Obihara started working with another company called Daimler Benz to design Benz automobiles. And currently, all trucks are designed by Obihara, and now gradually they want to go into automobiles. And if that proves to be more financially promising than deals with Ford, they can say sayonara to Ford, and what's going to happen to Ford? And they design the question is the next generation use the car for the next 50 years. Now it's more like and that's the scary part of our life with the Japanese. As I told you, working with the Japanese is excellent, but there is a dark side. The light seems to lose out. In the end. So what to do? Don't cover, or at least do not have a partner with a competing product. This example is Gordon Ice Cream went with one of the confectionery companies in Japan, which also makes sense. There's a licensing agreement, which usually licensing the whole deal of anything. You can't separate part of the equation not to think about it, in order to make your own brand of ice cream. So naturally, there was a merge of knowledge. And as a result, Meiji Milk, the company, could make a good ice cream and maybe get ice cream and water. And remember, Meiji is under licensing Golden Ice Cream. One brand of Golden Ice Cream, 3 brands of Japanese. In the same, box retail. Anyway. And as it turns out, customer selection of high-end ice cream is pretty much very 3 from Meiji, 1 from Gordon, from 3 to 1. And Gordon teaches the relation. And what they do is develop a relationship and don't know what to do. Remember, they never learned about the distribution. They never learned about the market distribution. They just learned the technology. Remember, product innovation mindset. You have the technology, you got the software, in other words, so don't have a partner with competing products. That's the last thing you want to do. And don't transfer, if there is a technology transfer, don't transfer everything to that time. It's your way, and that will show you lifestyle. Keep innovating on products faster than Japanese thinking or learning from. They're great learners. They learn basic controlling that drawbacks like that, joint venture with Japanese to show that you do everything. And unfortunately, you cannot keep innovating on product type faster than Japanese learning. That's the problem. There are exceptions, but trying to create exceptions is difficult. And then the last 2 exclusions, didn't need to present those my account. And high-level engineering staff work side by side with the Japanese, which you don't do it. And marketing staff work closely with local distribution channels, which you don't do at all. And then the reason is, I'll give you a simple example. City of Austin, and City of Oita, Japan, entered into a 6-century relation. 5 years ago. I was asked to serve on the U.S. Austin side. And Austin, 1 year, decided to send mission to Boise. We sent 7 people. They simultaneously sent it. I can't remember somebody else, and then 1 official and some other people. 2 translators, and then 5 real people. So they went to Japan for a week and came back. And then within 2 days of their return, there was a small blog, a small news article about the visit to Boise. And that was it. And of course, I didn't know anything about Boise. And the following year, Boise City sent us a fax saying that they're sending their mission. And I was asked by Bruce Todd, that he was the city mayor, and he asked me, how many, he knew that Japanese can send more people. But he called me and said, I asked him, how many people do you want to send? And then I asked him, how many people do you send? 7, 2 times. So my guess was double, maybe 10 to 15, maybe 15, and then Japanese didn't send anything until literally 2 weeks before their arrival. So we got some final facts, final tallies, how many people come. Lo and behold, they sent 17 people. 17 people representing all walks of life, government officials, labor union folks, mom and pop shop owners, and store owners, to retired people, to people who are just crazy about golf, nothing but golf, and high-tech people. The point being, look at the issue from the learning point of view. How much did Austin learn from a business? Nothing. There is a lot in the music. And how much did the Japanese learn about Austin? The golf players play golf in all golf courses and work at big states in Austin a month. Playing golf every day of the week. If you're allowed to wrap your phone. But in any case, but that's how they do it. And union, labor union folks in the union folks. They have and collectively, I can tell you, I can assure you, the Japanese learn a lot more about what our cities have to offer than we have learned from the Japanese. And then I received the newspaper about a month later, Long told Sunday newspaper, 4 segments is on Austin. You can learn a lot more about Austin by reading the Japanese paper. That's to take a pretty deep technique. More than anything, I learned a lot about Austin. I found nice swimming pools, by the way. That's tremendous. Apply to the corporate situation. Japanese can send more people to learn everything that we have there. Well, we just send this limited facility because we would like to minimize the cost of getting the job done. Japanese would like to get the job done to get the cost. So if you think about long-term implications of basically what we do, they learn a lot. And I also taught at New York University to one job in closing. AP and I began working the best way to find information about your competitors, best way to find that information is to go to Japanese. Thank you.
Spend 5 minutes for your questions since we are running out of time, and this time I open the floor to the Any questions for Dr. Kotabe or Michael?
One question. Going back to this slide, the value of cost of competitive advantage slide. In your study, how did you quantify those variable, or did you quantify those variables?
I've defined what components are and not that.
Okay.
This is the lowest prototype list of things that belong to each one of them. And then it's I strongly believe in professional bias actually. You don't have to dollarize it, you don't have to quantify it. All I need to do is ask those things that we are most important. Ask them where are you adding value, and allocate 100 points among them. And I did it several times with different groups of American experts, German experts. And I thought, I think back in Finland 4 days ago, and I did the same thing with Nokia. They tend to think more like Japanese than
Did they give you more input beyond the scale? They say, here's why we think the system is part of the scale?
So I can't really speak to this and using this line. I didn't have to
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to prove that this is evaluate corporate value. So actually, not many companies think like American companies, other than American. Those in Germany, they think like Japanese fashion for Japanese. Very unpolarized, Scandinavian, that is the same thing about the regional people. Things like Japanese, that is the same thing there. Things like I did the same thing even like Pickens was too. I did the same thing in the and then called the company, several of them. And they did more like that. So I'm all the more convinced that American way of looking at it because we have about use call. Even the output, how does that mean when I use call? I'm not saying that's bad. If the investor does do it well. But from customer point of view.
Right. There seems to be a paradox here too. The strategy that you identify as American seems to be commodity-oriented, whereas the strategy you identify as European and Japanese seems to be quality-oriented. Yet the manufacturing process tends to be identified more closely with Japanese and German, whereas the R&D process tends to be more associated with software development in the United States. Do you find that paradox? Do you think about that?
Well, I agree with you. That's what I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's new to us. That's what we do. And that's what, in general, and this, I mean, how many companies like this, it's a monopoly space. If you come up with new products, that's our space called a monopoly. Different people call it competitive, but monopoly. Temporary. Now, what we do temporary about monopoly theory is also that many of the American institutions in the fundamental use of this that we tend to rely on somebody else to go on. And that's where our problem is. So, blaming Japanese or anyone else for anything that is a violent it's a long way to look at the company. Both of them are important. And companies that do both, according to one of my studies, that's common sense today, you do both of them better than competition.
We are running out of time. On behalf of Western University, my all lectures for your contribution to our seminar, and let's give a hand to Mari. I don't want to get ready. I'm the organizer. Let's take a 10-minute break, and then our speaker, Michael Bond, is here, and Virgil, and after that, we'll come back.